I live alone. Or at least, I thought I did. The first time I realized something was wrong was when I heard footsteps behind me. Soft, uneven, too light to be an adult's, too heavy to be a mouse or a raccoon. At first I thought it was just the house, old wood, loose pipes, imagination. But the sound followed me from room to room, always a beat behind, always just out of sight. It took 3 nights before I saw it. I'd gone into the hallway for water. The lights were off, the only glow from the moon through the blinds. Halfway to the kitchen, I felt it again, that presence at my back. I turned, and my throat closed. A baby! It sat in the middle of the hallway naked, except for a filthy diaper. Its skin was pale gray, almost bluish like something long dead pulled from water. But what froze me most was the smile. Wide, too wide. A mouth stretched nearly to its ears, filled with gums that seemed to ripple, and sharp white buds beneath them. It didn't cry or move. It just sat there, watching me. I blinked, and it was gone. When I got home from work the next day, the front door was open a crack. Muddy handprints, tiny ones, smeared across the floor. From then on, it never left. I'd catch glimpses of it throughout the day, its bald head peeking around door frames, its body rocking in the corner of the room, its reflection in the television screen. I'd hear the slap of its hands on the floor, crawling just out of sight. The sounds grew louder. What began as faint giggles turned into full, distorted laughter, not joyful, mocking. It followed me into every room, echoing from the walls until I couldn't think. The air smelled sour, like spoiled milk. I tried leaving by driving 2 towns over to stay in a motel, but even there it followed. When I bent to brush my teeth, I saw it reflected in the mirror behind me, crawling out from under the bed, its smile splitting wider as it dragged itself toward me. I spun round, but the room was empty. That was when I knew there was no escape. Each day it drew closer and stopped keeping its distance. I'd feel its tiny fingers clutching my pant leg while I walked, hear its crawling behind me on the stairs. Once, when I sat in the living room with my head in my hands, it climbed into my lap. My body went cold. I looked down and there it was, grinning up at me, black eyes wide. I screamed and shoved it off, but my hands passed through air. It only laughed. I barely eat now. Sleep is impossible. Every night I lie awake, listening to it crawl around the room. Sometimes I feel the mattress dip as it climbs onto the bed, pressing its weight against my legs, my chest, my face. I wake to find bruises on my skin in the shape of tiny hands. And the smell, always strong now, sour milk. It clings to me and seeps into my clothes. Even when I shower, it's still there, lingering in the back of my throat. I think it's changing. At first, it was small, infant-sized, but lately, it seems bigger, crawling faster. Its hands feel heavier when they touch me. Last night, it spoke, not out loud, not with its mouth, but as I lay there in the dark. It pressed its face to mine, and a voice slid into my head, a child's voice, high and breathy.
Papa!
I'm not a father. I never had children, never wanted them. But the word froze in my bones, and I realized something awful. It didn't matter if I had a child. It decided I was its father, and that meant I belonged to it. Now it won't stop talking. Every hour, every minute, that voice in my skull.
Papa! Papa! Papa!
Followed by laughter and sometimes followed by words I can't understand, guttural and wet, as if whispered through water. I don't know what it wants, or maybe I do, and I just won't admit it. The truth has been there all along, gnawing at the edges of my thoughts. I've ignored it, buried it, pretended it never happened, But the baby doesn't let me. Every night it comes back to remind me. Years ago, when a girlfriend and I were young and terrified, she told me she was pregnant. We weren't ready. I said we couldn't keep it. I drove her to the clinic and waited in the car, chain smoking until my fingers stank of ash. I thought that was the end of it. I know, deep down, what it wants. Not forgiveness, not comfort, not even love. It wants me to acknowledge it, to admit that I killed it before it could even live, and it refuses to stay erased. Last night, when I felt its cold hand wrap around mine in the dark, squeezing tight, I realized something that made my blood freeze. I squeezed back. I don't tell people I'm a father. The word doesn't fit what I brought into this world. My wife, Claire, always wanted a child. I agreed half-heartedly, not because I wanted one, but because I thought it would fix the cracks between us. The moment she found out she was pregnant, she changed, joyful at first, glowing, and then sick. So sick she could hardly get out of bed. The doctors said it was complicated morning sickness, but I could see in her eyes that it was more than that. She said the baby kicked too hard. Bruises bloomed across her stomach in the shapes of hands, feet, sometimes claw-like imprints. She'd wake up screaming, her nightshirt damp with blood, where scratches appeared as if carved from the inside out. The doctors had no answers, only confusion. The night she went into labor, I drove her through a thunderstorm. Lightning tore the sky open as she screamed beside me, her voice raw, animal. We made it to the hospital, but by then she was half delirious, clawing at her belly. The nurses rushed her inside. I wasn't allowed in the delivery room. Hours passed. The storm knocked out power, leaving the hallways lit by flickering generators. I sat there, sweating, my hands clasped, when a doctor finally came out. His face was pale, his scrubs soaked red. He didn't speak, he just handed me a bundle wrapped in white. I didn't ask where Claire was. Some part of me already knew she was dead. I looked down at the baby, my son. At first glance, he was just wrong, not in a way I could put into words. He had 10 fingers and toes. He was the right weight and the right shape, but his skin was too pale, almost translucent. His eyes were black, not newborn dark, but pit black, and his mouth, when he yawned, had teeth, rows of tiny, sharp teeth. When I touched his hand, he gripped my finger with strength no infant should have, and I swear to God, I heard a voice in my head murmur, "Father." I should have walked away right then and left him in that hospital, but I didn't. I took him home. The first night, he didn't cry, not once. Instead, I woke to find him standing in the crib, actually standing. His black eyes were fixed on me in the dark, unblinking. I tried to tell myself babies develop differently, that it was fine, that Claire would have wanted me to try. But every day, he changed. Too fast. His skin grew tougher, gray-tinged. He began speaking before he should have been able to babble. He told me things. He knew what I was thinking before I said it. He knew secrets about my past, my family, my dead father. When the house was quiet, I'd hear him murmuring in a dozen voices, as if he were never alone in that small body. The animals noticed. Birds slammed against our windows, and the neighbor's cat was found torn open on my porch, its insides arranged like a circle. I buried it before anyone saw. I stopped answering calls and stopped going to work. All I did was watch him, care for him, listen to him, because that's what he wanted. My attention, my devotion. He called me father constantly, and each time it felt less like affection and more like ownership. Sometimes I blacked out, waking to find myself sitting across from him, blood on my hands, though I didn't know whose. Once, I woke with carvings on my arms, symbols I didn't understand, etched deep enough to scar. When I asked him why, he only smiled, a wide, toothy grin, and said, "Preparation." I thought of drowning him in the bathtub or smothering him in his crib, but every time I tried, I froze. My body would lock, my vision blur, and his voice would curl through my skull like smoke.
Don't forget who you belong to.
The worst was the mirror. I carried him past the hallway mirror and froze. My reflection wasn't holding a baby. It was cradling something else, something twisted, covered in slick red skin, its head too large and its limbs bent wrong. It grinned at me with rows of jagged teeth, and its eyes burned like coals. But when I looked down at my arms, I saw only my son, quiet and smiling. That's when I realized everyone else would only see a child. Only I could see the truth, and I was trapped in it with him, alone. He grows faster by the day. He speaks of doors, of fire, of legions waiting to step through. He says the world is soft, ready, that I am the key, that my blood was chosen. Last night, I heard voices outside and children's laughter. Dozens of small shapes pressed against the windows, clawing to get in. He sat in the middle of the living room, grinning, and said,
They're hungry, Father. We'll feed them soon.
I think about Claire often, and how she begged the doctors to cut him out before the due date. How she screamed that she didn't want it. I should have listened. I should have let her die with him inside. But now I can't leave. I can't run. I'm his father. And fathers protect their children. I live alone in a house too big for me. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I bought the place for me and Lisa, back when we were planning a future, back when marriage and kids seemed inevitable. She left before the moving boxes were even unpacked, said she couldn't handle my moods, my drinking, the way I withdrew from everyone. She was right to go. The house never stopped feeling empty. Too many rooms, too much space for one man. For a while, I filled the silence with the television, with late nights at the bar, with anything that kept me from sitting still. But after a few years, the isolation stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like normal. Then the crying started. It was late, nearly 3 a.m, when I first heard it. A baby's cry. I sat up in bed confused. I don't have neighbors close enough for the sound to carry like that. And even if I did, it was unmistakable. The cry came from inside my house. I searched every room, opening closets, checking the basement, but couldn't find anything. The crying stopped after 10 minutes, leaving me shaken. It had been years since I'd heard an infant, but I knew the unmistakable sound. The next night it came again, echoing down the hallway outside my bedroom. I left the light on, but the sound threaded through the walls until dawn. After the third night, I started hearing other things. The creak of floorboards in the nursery, the room Lisa and I had picked out, but never used. A faint rattling, like the mobile we'd bought but never hung. But when I opened the nursery door, the air was colder than the rest of the house, and there were small impressions in the dust on the floor. Handprints. Tiny, perfect handprints. I should have packed up and gone, but where would I go? This was my house, and part of me, God help me, wanted to know what it was. The crying grew more frequent. Every night now, always between 2 and 3. Sometimes it was just whimpers, other times full ragged wails that made the hair on my arms rise. I'd sit on the edge of the bed, fists clenched, waiting for it to stop. It never did until the sky lightened. Then came the toys. I found a rattle in the hallway, old and cracked. Then a pacifier on the kitchen counter, yellowed with age. Once, I found a blanket draped over the back of the couch. It was small, pink, and stained dark at the edges. The smell of iron clung to it. I locked the nursery door after that, but at night, I'd hear the thump of something crawling against the inside. After a few weeks, I was exhausted. My reflection in the mirror grew hollow, eyes ringed in black. In the corner of my vision, I saw movement, a small shadow skittering along the floor, the faint impression of a crawling shape. I was in bed and suddenly realized that it was in the room with me. I didn't hear it at first. I felt it, the weight at the foot of the bed. I sat up slowly and saw a small figure in the dark, a baby. Not solid, not flesh. Its body was pale light, edges fraying like smoke. Its eyes were pits of shadow. It just stared at me. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't. My body wouldn't obey. Then it opened its mouth, not to cry, but to whisper.
You left me.
My stomach turned to ice. I never had a child, I whispered, though I don't know if I spoke aloud or only thought it. It tilted its head, and in that moment, I saw its face more clearly. Not some stranger's, familiar. My father's nose, Lisa's mouth, a face that could have been, a child that never was. The thing dragged itself closer, crawling on all fours up the bed, leaving streaks of cold where its hands touched the blanket. Its breath rattled against my cheek as it whispered again.
You should have loved me.
I woke screaming on the floor. The sheets twisted around me. The room was empty. I tried to tell myself it was a dream or a hallucination brought on by stress and solitude, but the bruises on my ankle where tiny fingers had gripped me were real. The next night, the crying came again, louder, shriller, like knives in my ears. I pressed a pillow over my head, but the sound rose until the walls themselves seemed to weep. And beneath it, layered deep, I heard laughter. I don't leave the bedroom anymore. I keep the lights on, every bulb blazing, but the crying seeps through. Sometimes I hear small hands scratching at the door. Sometimes the knob turns. A crib appeared in the corner of the room. I don't know how it got there. Old wood, splintered, rocking gently though no one touched it. Inside was a shape wrapped in a blanket. It breathed. I refuse to look at it. I keep my eyes on the floor, but I can hear it gurgling, soft and wet. I know what it wants. It wants a father. It wants love. It wants to fill the empty rooms with something that should never have existed. I hear it shifting in the crib, dragging itself closer. I feel the air grow cold around my neck. I don't know how long I can keep pretending I'm alone, because I'm not. I never was. I never believed in anything really. God, the devil, ghosts, demons. I thought all of it was just ways to explain what couldn't be explained yet. Science would get there eventually. That was before I held my son in my arms and saw for the first time that something truly unnatural had taken root in this world. My wife, Hannah, had always wanted children. I didn't. Not out of fear of responsibility or money or any of the usual reasons. I just felt deep in my marrow that bringing a new life into this world wasn't something I should do. She begged, pleaded, wore me down over years, and eventually, I agreed. The pregnancy was normal at first. The doctor said the baby was healthy, strong, perfect, but toward the end, Hannah grew pale and feverish. She said the baby moved too much, too violently, twisting inside her like it wanted out. At night, I'd wake to find her clutching her stomach in agony. When she went into labor, the hospital lights flickered. I remember that detail because the nurse laughed nervously, saying storms had been knocking the power around all week, but the skies outside were clear. The delivery was fast, and then He was there, my son, except he didn't look like any newborn I'd ever seen. His eyes were open, wide, alert, fixed on me with a blackness so complete it felt like I was falling in. Babies aren't supposed to do that. He didn't cry. He just stared, silent, his lips curling into something that looked disturbingly close to a smile. The nurses fussed and tried to hand him to Hannah, but she recoiled and whispered, "That's not mine," and turned her face away. She wouldn't look at him again. We brought him home. What else could we do? He needed care. He needed parents. I named him Thomas after my father. Though Hannah refused to say his name, she referred to him only as it or the thing. From the first night I knew she wasn't wrong. Thomas didn't sleep like other babies. He never fussed or cried for food, but in the darkest hours, I'd hear him babbling in the crib, low guttural sounds, almost like a language. I'd lean close and swear I heard words forming into whispers that weren't human. Our dog noticed it too and growled at the crib, until one night we found him dead by the nursery door, his body twisted, his eyes open and staring in frozen terror. The vet couldn't explain it. Thomas grew faster than he should have. At 3 months he was crawling. At 6, walking. His eyes never changed color, never lightened, just stayed that abyssal black. Hannah withdrew more and more. She wouldn't hold him, wouldn't speak to him, and finally, one night, she told me she wanted him gone. "He's not ours," she said, shaking, her voice paper thin. I wanted to argue, to protect my son, because that's what fathers are supposed to do. But deep down, I felt it too, the wrongness. Still, I couldn't abandon him. He was mine. One night, I woke to the sound of fabric rustling and choking gasps. I ran into the nursery and found Hannah pressing a pillow down over his face. I tore her away, but she fought me, shrieking, "It's not a baby! It's not a baby!" Her nails gouged my arms before she collapsed, sobbing. But when I turned back to Thomas, I froze. He wasn't gasping or crying. He was lying there, with the pillow still half covering him, grinning. After that, Hannah wouldn't stay in the house. She left and begged me to come with her, to leave it behind, but I couldn't. The thought of abandoning him filled me with a terror I couldn't explain, as if something larger, darker, would come for me if I let him go. The months blurred and his growth accelerated. By the time he should have been a toddler, he spoke fluently in whispers only I could hear. He'd sit in the corner, lips unmoving, while his voice coiled in my mind, telling me secrets about people I knew. Secrets that proved true. He told me the neighbor's husband would crash his car on the highway, and days later, it happened. He told me which stocks would rise, which would fall, and he was always right, and he was always grinning. I tried to resist, but I began to listen. Who wouldn't? His knowledge was perfect. I made money, connections, choices I never would have dared before. But the cost came slowly. Sometimes when I looked at Thomas, his face blurred, features twisting into shapes that weren't human. Once, in the bathroom mirror, I caught my own reflection grinning back at me when my mouth was closed, and the dreams, God, the dreams, vast fields of fire, black skies tearing open, thousands of children with empty eyes, their voices all whispering in unison, "Father." Tonight he stood by my bed, taller than he should be, his shadow spilling across the walls like liquid. He leaned down, his breath hot against my ear, and said clear as day, "It's time, Father." I should have listened to Hannah. I should have never agreed to have a child. Because what I brought into this world is not leaving. It's opening the door for the rest.